And then do you want to use the mic so people in Zoom?
Oh, Mike, thank you so much for reminding me.
I don't have to just use my mom voice. Thank you, all of you for coming out tonight and giving us your time and hopefully suggestions and thoughts and questions. My name is Amy Bell. I'm a landscape architect with Anthropopulous Design and Planning. We're a landscape architecture and planning firm that's located in Albuquerque. I live in Corrales. My children have gone to Corrales Elementary up until this year. I'm joined by Maren Neldum, who's one of our planners at Anthropopulous. And we've been lucky enough to get to work with the village and community members on the development of this interior drain master plan, building on the very valuable work that the Interior Drain Committee did before us. Do we want to bring up the presentation? Thank you, Melanie. Okay, so I have, I'm not going to say brief, it's a semi-brief presentation. I do want to make sure I cover a lot of the information about the planning process and the strategies recommended in the plan. And so I'm gonna ask that we get through the presentation and then we can open things up for a conversation. We do have folks both here in person and on Zoom. So when we do the Q&A, I want to make sure that we're going back and forth between folks who are here in person and folks who are on Zoom, just so that we make sure that everybody is heard. Are they funny? Is it actually what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I thought it might get in the way of the presentation. Oh, there we go.
Okay, thank you. So what we're going to talk through this evening, we're going to do a quick project overview, a little background, talk about the community engagement, and also the physical analysis that we did as part of the planning process, which then helped us identify priorities for the plan. And then we developed strategies, recommended strategies to achieve those priority actions. And then we'll talk a little bit about implementation. It's been a really fun process. We've gotten to work with a lot of community members on this, and I think this is a really special plan because this isn't a master plan in kind of the more like formal sense that a lot of us are used to. This is a very natural, rural environment. It's a very sort of adaptive plan where I think we don't want to have a heavy hand. We want to be very careful to try to address the needs that have been identified in a way that doesn't overdo anything. And we'll get into what that means here as we get along. Next slide, please, Melanie. Okay, what is the Corrales Interior Drain? It is an approximately 2-mile long drainage ditch, and that's an important distinction. It's a drainage ditch, not an irrigation ditch. That runs through Corrales from Valverde at the north to the Riverside Drain or the Clear Ditch to the south between Corrales Road and the Clear Ditch. The initial, go ahead, Melanie, you were perfect, you were right on. The original intention of the interior drain constructed by the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District in the 1930s was to lower groundwater and return irrigation water to the Rio Grande. It has not functioned as intended for several decades. At the time it was constructed, believe it or not, that area was very boggy and it was hard to grow things. To have those lands be agricultural without draining that water into the drain and returning it to the river. You can see the diagram there shows where the water table used to be and where it is now. And that's, due to several factors, right, that the water table is lower. We do know that there are portions of the drain where there is still standing water, especially as we get closer to the Clear Ditch and the river. And we do know that plants in the upper parts of the interior drain are also accessing water, right? Because we do have cottonwood trees, we have willows. It's just not visible standing water. Next slide. Okay, who owns the interior drain? It is owned by the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. But as part of the great work that the Corrales Interior Drain Committee worked on was to have the village work with the MRGCD to develop and enter a joint powers agreement, which was executed in 2023. This establishes the portion of the drain located between Station 21, and which is approximately Valverde at the northern terminus, and Station 91, which is approximately the Nichols Drain. Or did I have that backwards? Backwards. 91 is the northern one, 21 is the southern one, which is approximately the Nichols Drain. And this has been established through that JPA as the Corrales Interior Drain Preserve. This agreement, thank you. This agreement transferred the management, operations, and maintenance of this area from the MRGCD to the village. The MRGCD does still operate and maintain the section that is south of Nichols Drain to the Clear Ditch. This plan, though, did include that area as part of this entire sort of section. We wanted to consider it because it's connected. We wanted to think about it. It has a very important connection to the Bosque and the trails there. So we looked at that, although we can't make formal recommendations about that section. It was definitely evaluated and considered. Okay, next slide. What is the purpose of this master plan? And I want to be clear about what this master plan is. This is not a design. This is not a proposed design. It's a guiding document that provides a framework for decision making. And so before anyone sees any of this stuff happen out there, there needs to be further work that's done to design and move the implementation forward. And I think the village has been very conscious of the need for community engagement during this process. This plan very clearly recommends a lot more community engagement as you know, if implementation moves forward. But this document provides that kind of overarching framework that's like, these are the goals that we want to achieve, and these are possible strategies or recommended ways that we can achieve those goals. As well as thoughts about phasing for project implementation. As I mentioned, this is what we're recommending is a really adaptive or implement and monitor approach, which is take light steps, see how it goes, see if you need to do more. If you don't do it. Next slide. We have had a blast with community on this project. We have worked with a really fantastic group of outreach facilitators who are all Corrales residents who helped us think about the best ways to engage with the Corrales community, helped us plan events, helped us share information about the project. And we're really grateful for their assistance and for their ideas and participation. We had 2 events, including the multimodal tours, which included hay rides, and special thanks to the Tractor Club for pulling us around on the drain on a Sunday afternoon. And we also had a previous community meeting like this that was we had interactive boards, and we're collecting more ideas and feedback to community presentations. Oh wait, the 2 events, I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up. I should have listed it up there. But the 2 community presentations, the one before and then this one, and then we had the hay rides, the multimodal tour, and we participated in the Ride Strides and Giddy Up event, where we got to talk with a lot of folks and present some of the initial plan recommendations, got some really great feedback, and we're able to make some adjustments based on that. We've had a number of stakeholder meetings with the Tree Committee, the Kiwanis, Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Trails Commission, Equestrian Advisory Commission, Parks and Rec Commission. We have also had meetings with MRGCD to make sure that the things that were being looked at were something that they would approve, because everything that the village does, even though they now have that operation and management capability within the interior drain, the MRGCD has to approve that first before it can happen. We met with Albuquerque Public Schools because we wanted to coordinate with the new school design and make sure that if we were going to be encouraging children to be walking along the drain, that there was a safe access to the new school. Understand vehicular circulation patterns. If folks are not aware, the new school design is going to have all parent pickup and drop off of Corrales Road and back out Corrales Road. So those of you that live along the drain should not see all of the parent pickup and drop off traffic. That is a small consolation for you having to deal with the construction right now. Maybe, yeah, pretty massive. We also met with, excuse me, Roadrunner Waste because we know people put their trash bins out there, and we wanted to make sure that anything we recommended was not going to prevent, that valuable service. We also had field hours. We got to meet with several residents who live along the drain, look at their properties, talk about how, what their concerns are, how this project could affect them. A lot of those were sort of informal too, because Marin and I have spent hours walking up and down the drain. And if you live along the drain, you haven't seen us. I'm kind of surprised, but we had a lot of people come out and say, "What are you doing? What are you doing out here with your camera and your measuring tape and stuff?" And so had a lot of great conversations with folks, and we're really grateful for that because, this is the kind of thing that we don't want to make this stuff up. It's important for us to understand the current concerns that you all have, that neighbors to the drain have, and how the village can best support media, addressing those concerns. We did also have 2 surveys, an initial survey that really, we'll talk about the results of that, and then a secondary survey that just really was looking for reactions to the draft plan recommendations. Next slide. So the initial survey, we got 186 responses, which was great. Thank you to all of you who responded to the survey. We asked questions like, how often do you visit the drain? Do you live near the drain? Why do you visit the drain? And we had 75% of our respondents travel the drain daily, which is great because it means we were getting responses from people who are using the drain and so have an experience of it. 43% of our respondents live along the drain and also travel the drain regularly by foot, most popularly by foot, then car, then bike, then horse. So interesting, most people that responded walk along the drain instead of drive. Next slide. This is impossible for any of us to read. It's tiny, but we also asked folks to identify, what do you love about the drain? Is there a special location for you? Why is this place special? Do you have a memory there? Did you used to catch frogs there? Do you still catch frogs there or turtles? We saw these amazing alligator snapping turtles down closer to the clear ditch. I'd never seen one of those before. I thought it was a dinosaur. And then the red dots were, where do we have concerns? And concerns that we heard were dust, cars traveling too quickly, delivery trucks in particular, worried about safety for, sort of that pedestrian, bicyclist, car, vehicular conflict. Are there ways that we can reduce those places where we have all of those different modes of travel in the same place? Next slide. So top priorities that we heard were habitat management and improvement, maintaining the rural character and natural feeling of the drain. This is something that we know from the comprehensive plan outreach and a lot of the other efforts that have been happening in the village. We know that this is a community that values our rural character very strongly. And so we wanted to make sure that that was a value that we were moving forward with this plan. Keep the drain less developed, reducing traffic volume, limiting car access. We heard very clearly, we do not want additional folks coming to the drain. We did not want to make this an attraction, a trail, an outdoor recreation resource. This is something that, this is where people live, and we want to protect that, and we want to protect the rural and natural character. But we also want to make it safer for pedestrians, cyclists, and horseback riders. Next slide. In addition to a lot of work, with community, with the village staff, particularly emergency services, and Tanya will be here eventually. She had another meeting she had to be at, but thinking about fire safety, emergency access. We live on narrow roads. Wanting to make sure that anything that is proposed down there would increase safety and not create a situation where someone couldn't evacuate or could not get out easily and safely. Additional inventory and evaluation that we did includes a desktop cultural resource inventory. We hired a cultural resource consultant to help us with that. Desktop biological resource inventory as well, to understand what types of species live on the drain and in the area, and what would be needed for habitat restoration. We did a very detailed property access inventory, which are the tiny little dots on there, but we walked up and down and we looked at everywhere where someone accesses their property from the drain, because we wanted to make sure that we did not limit that access. You access your residence from the drain now, you should be able to do so going forward. Emergency access evaluation, thinking about evacuation routes, making sure people can get in and out safely, making sure that the emergency services know how to get to you. Next slide. We looked at parking adjacencies because we know that residents, neighbors of the drain do not want more people parking down there. So thinking about where are the places, if people are gonna, they live in Corrales, they want to walk the drain, you can park at Village Hall, you can park in this parking lot, you can park, over at the Anderson property, or at Gonzales. Thank you. We looked at public and private road intersections and crossings. So understanding all of those intersections that cross the drain. Some of those are private roads, and we have to, when we're thinking about evacuation and access, the owner of that private road may at some point choose to gate that road. So that was part of our important considerations. We looked very carefully at road and drain conditions. The roadway conditions are different in different places. In some places, they're appropriate for vehicles to be driving. In others, it's too sandy and vehicles get stuck. The drain is very different in different locations. In some places, it's wide and it's shallow. In some places, it's narrower and it's deep, or it's wider and it's deep. So understanding all of those different characteristics was really important. And then we also worked with the village and the MRGCD to understand current management practices and how that might change or be affected by any proposed changes. Next slide. So through all of this process, we identified 4 main priorities for this plan, including access management, enhancing safety, habitat and ecological stewardship, and maintaining the drain function. So this map shows us the access management scheme that we looked at proposing. And this is, again, based on a lot of this information about where do people currently access their residences, and where do we need to maintain, a higher level of access for evacuation routes. And so I know it's real tiny and it's hard to see, but there's sort of 3 main colors up there. The green is what is proposed as a multi-use path, which would be managed as a route for pedestrians, bicycles, and equestrians, not for everyday vehicular use. It's important to note that we need to maintain all of these routes for emergency vehicle access. So I'll talk a little bit about how we're managing that access. The orange is no change to access, it's just gonna stay the way it is. And the purple is what we're calling local access. And so these would be areas where residents would still be able to access their homes. Really, anyone would still be able to drive there, but we're looking at narrowing the entry to those roadways at the intersection. So it discourages people, if they don't live there, from driving on that route, and also encourages people to slow down as they enter. Next slide. So for that access management, we are proposing two main tools, and that is signage, things like local access only, no parking, and multi-purpose path to identify those areas for those different uses. And the use of flexible bollards, which, oh, I brought it in my car and I didn't bring it in. I can go get it if anybody wants to see what the bollard looks like. But these are stakes that go into the ground, and you can run them over if you need to. So if emergency vehicles needed to access the multi-use path, they could just run those bollards over. Hey, Tanya. Next slide. The other thing that we looked at, again, working with our wildlife biologist and through the biological survey, was identifying, it was great. We got to walk the drain, and Sarah's identifying all these different types of birds. There's so much great wildlife down there. There's so much diversity. It's really cool. Every time you walk it, different seasons, you see different things. It's really, really fantastic. And so we told Sarah, we want to look at, we've established this priority as habitat restoration, habitat stewardship, enhancement. And she was like, well, who's habitat? And we said, well, we would like to attract more native species, right? And so we looked at the different characteristics of the drain, from north to south, where we have, sort of drier, less vegetated situations to wetter, more vegetated, but really different species, as you go up and down. And thought about, what are the types of species that we want to attract? And so the habitat restoration recommendations really look at what are the plant palettes, what are the revegetation seeding mixes, what is this, what kinds of, habitat do we want to create in these different spaces that's based on the existing conditions and based on the types of species that we would like to attract to those areas. And this also presents potentially future interpretive opportunity. The area behind the school is proposed to be managed as a multi-purpose path. And so there is opportunity for the school to, leverage that additional space and then provide some education about these different plant and animal species. Next slide. One other thing that we looked at was slope stabilization, and this is kind of a critical area. This habitat restoration, slope stabilization. This is where we're really providing sort of very general, overarching, goals. This is something that needs to be designed section by section of the drain, because different sections are so different, right? There's sections where you could, and I'm thinking about, those sort of shallower, wider sections as you get closer, to the Nichols drain. You could fill in the sides some, I'm sorry, you could, yeah, or there you could fill them in and you wouldn't have to touch the base of the drain. I mean, and again, there's we're showing two different scenarios here. There's probably 50. But generally, we can either sort of fill in the sides or fill in over the base of the drain, in which case we would have to install a perforated pipe to maintain that drain function. There's different considerations associated with that, including how are the plants that are there now going to continue to access water if the lower level of the drain is higher. We could also cut the sides of the drain if we have enough space for the uses on either side to reduce that slope. The concern with the slope is that it's hard to revegetate a slope when it's 1-to-1. It's a really steep slope right now. We do see vegetation on the slope. We see a lot of invasive species because they have really crazy roots and they're able to do that. We also see a lot of native species down there taking advantage of it. So there's kind of a combination of this potential cut, potential fill, and then other stabilization techniques like brush layering, mattresses, wattles, or live stakes. Again, this is something that, we're setting a general goal. There's going to have to be further design work done. Next slide. Road surfacing. Now, this is something again too that we aren't saying that the village should go in and resurface the whole road, change the color of the crusher fines for the trail. What we're recommending, and again, I'll talk about this more as we get into phasing and recommendations there, is to do the bollards as an access management control first, and then see if that addresses the concerns with speed and safety for pedestrians, equestrians, and bicyclists. This is a strategy that can be used. Paving with crusher fines reduces dust, it reduces maintenance, it increases safety. Using a different color for the path portion of that provides a visual delineation of where vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists, and equestrians are. It also narrows that field of vision, which we know slows traffic. But is it necessary? Maybe not. Next slide. So we'll look at the different study areas where we looked at, different types of access management, different treatments. We'll kind of go through these from north to south. So next slide, starting at Valverde. Really between Dixon and Valverde, it's very residential access. So we looked at, and this is the proposed narrowing of that entry point. So the bollards would just be not like you saw on the other slide where they were all the way along the trail. I know a lot of people hate the bollards. I know. We looked at gates. We even looked at, Councillor Murray suggested, roll curbs. And so we talked to is over there at Alameda. He said, can we just do roll curbs because they're not as visible? We talked to a transportation engineer about that, and there's a lot of reasons why. Even though we don't necessarily like the way the bollards look, they're a better option. They're significantly less expensive. When you have non-flexible pavement like concrete next to flexible pavement like dirt, your concrete is going to break. It's going to be a maintenance nightmare. And we figured it's like an order of magnitude cost difference of like 100. Like it's a really different situation. So the bollards do come in different colors, and again, this is where further design, figuring out, maybe the village can do a test intersection and we see how that looks and how that goes. But this was the best solution that we could find to that. Next slide. From Dixon to Rincon is probably the most complicated situation. We have like 4 different lanes that are currently used for vehicular traffic. So looking at limiting access in those areas behind the school and a little bit north to the multi-use path, because we have Price Lane, which is paved. So why do we need to have vehicles driving next to the drain if we have a paved roadway right there? And then in this section also we have potential again for closing the area off. I say closing, but managing access behind the school, and then potentially creating some kind of nature trail using the base of the drain as a potential pathway as well, because there's some really nice cottonwoods in there. Next slide. Rincon to East La Entrada. This is where we are starting to look at local access only on the west side of the drain, and then no change on the east side of the drain. Why are we having no change there and not limiting that to local access? Because this section was identified as an important evacuation route because of the number of intersections and residents who would be using this section to get out. Next slide. La Entrada to Skylark. This is where we were able to manage access on the west side of the drain as a multi-use path, really all the way down to the clear ditch. So there's a really nice separation here of bicycles, pedestrians, equestrians, and then vehicular traffic with, as we get further south, really limiting, trying to limit that traffic to local access only. Next slide. And then Skylark to the Upper Crowless Drain, the clear ditch. This is where, we looked at, again, it would be possible to maintain that multi-use path feature, but the village does not have maintenance and operational control over this section, so we can't really formally make recommendations for that. Next slide. Okay, again, this is not a big fancy do all these really great things master plan. This is a very light touch. This is how do we, with the least amount of resources and effort, address the concerns that we have heard from many community members and village staff. So we're talking about this as prioritize adapted implementation. Okay, so priority 1 would be this access management at intersections. If we are to close or manage the access behind the school, we would need to add an additional drain crossing at Target Road so that that access could be maintained. Priority 3 would be habitat restoration. And then priority 4, if needed, which again, it may not be. Okay, this is an option that is available if at that time it is determined it is needed. There's a lot of great partnerships for implementation, design and implementation of, moving the plan forward. Ciudad Soil and Water Conservation District, Master Gardeners and Naturalists, Rio Grande Return is a really cool habitat restoration nonprofit organization. They actually helped us with some of the recommendations around habitat restoration and also figuring out what it might cost to restore habitat in the drain. And then looking at, Rocky Mountain Youth Corps, Ancestral Lands, other work crews, as well as potentially creating a Habitat Zone Stewards, a new program that the village could have. We have a lot of folks who live along the drain who said, hey, I would help out in my section of the drain. So leveraging that kind of support for implementation, and then also maintenance and management, right? This is a big area. The village has limited capacity. We already have a lot of really great parks and a pool and things that staff is taking care of. And so we wanted to be really careful not to add a lot to their plate. Something else that Rio Grande Return mentioned to me that I forgot to put up here, but workforce development is also, if people want jobs in restoration, this could be a good opportunity for them to learn how to do that. Next slide. Okay, funding. We have heard concerns from folks, why are we spending village money on this project? And there's actually some really great, outside funding opportunities. The Ciudad Soil and Water Conservation District is going to be enacting their mill levy, which is several $1 million in grants. I do want to note, though, that this project is not going to cost millions of dollars, even if all of the phases were implemented. We have state wildlife grants. We have NMED water resources grants because technically, the groundwater is still flowing towards the river, right? So the drain could be considered a water quality structure. And then we don't have it up there, but there's also wetlands funding, I think, that NMED provides. Transportation safety funding, Safe Streets and Roads for All, DOT grants, Transportation Alternatives Program, Safe Routes to Schools. Those are just a few, it's a handful of the sources of funding that would be possibilities that would not require things like the Outdoor Recreation Trails Plus grant that would require the village to put it on a map as a trail or other such thing, because we know that we do not want to attract more people to the drain. Time frame depends on funding. Right now, we're very close to completing the plan. Nothing else is funded. There's no design that's funded. There's no implementation that's funded. So no one's going to be seeing bollards outside your house next week, okay? However, I do want to note, once funded, implementation of the access management The drain crossing, probably about 3 months. The habitat restoration, design and implementation could take 3 to 5 years. That takes a long time, right? Because we have invasive species. So we have to do prep, we have to do removal. And then it's a very ongoing process. And that habitat restoration could happen in sections. It probably would happen in sections, right? Like probably wouldn't be the whole drain all at once. And I do want to address, costs. Again, we've heard concerns about spending millions of dollars. We have looked at the costs of the initial phases of bollards at intersections and the drain crossing, and that's going to be somewhere in the range of like, what is it, $120,000 to $150,000 on like the high end. The habitat restoration, we're looking at something around $65,000 an acre. So if you look at a 20-foot average width of the drain and look at the length, we're looking at maybe $300,000 on the high end to do habitat restoration for the whole thing. So the entire project, if you did all of it, except for the road resurfacing, would be less than $500,000. So it's in the scheme of master plans and budgets, it's not too bad. Next slide. I think we're done. So thank you for listening to me talk for so long. I hope that this information was useful. I'd really like to take questions and comments now. And again, we'll try to go back and forth between in person and in the Zoom. Janet, please.
Amy, can you mic so people?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Could we go back a couple of slides? Maybe I'm reading this wrong. Yeah, right there. Okay, it looks as if all of the trees in the drain have been removed. Am I reading that incorrectly?
Don't think that section of drain has trees. But again, this is where the design for the habitat restoration comes into play. Thanks, Janet. Each of these sections would need to be looked at carefully. There are trees, there are cottonwood trees, and other trees that should stay. There needs to be evaluation of whether or not the invasive species should stay or go. We did talk with our wildlife biologist about, would there be damage to habitat if these invasive species were removed? And her evaluation of it was there's so much other habitat around the drain that taking a few Russian olives and Siberian elm out in the drain would not be an issue for the species down there. We did talk with them about actually adding trees in the drain in that section. And our renderings don't show it. And renderings are imperfect. And we always wonder, like, should we do these? Because everyone's going to be like, well, what's that? Like right there. What's that thing? And really, they're just meant as to show an overall feeling. We wanted to show, how the bollards could work. I know that there's been an adverse reaction to that look, and we hear that. And I think that, we're going to be noting that in the plan and talk about how if those are implemented, that care needs to be taken so that it doesn't feel urban. And does that answer your question, Janet? Okay. Do we have any online, Melanie?
You tell them to use the raise their hand emoji. We don't have a chat.
Okay, raise your hand online if you want to ask a question. In the meantime, we're going to go to this gentleman here.
Hi, I'm Larry Azevedo. I live on Hanson Road, right back there. So whatever happens is probably going to affect me in one way or another. I've got two comments that I think should be considered. If anyone's seen TV lately and seen Kerrville or Ruidoso, our back door with a house rolling down streets in Ruidoso, my question is, and I don't know the answer to this, has anyone looked at the function of this drain as an emergency drain if we had 5 or 10 inches of rain over so many square miles just north or up in Rio Rancho. That's something that we should not change the function of it, because if a whole ton of rainfall comes through here, the 2 ditches have banks. So there's no place for that water to go except that away. So anything that we do there would be helpful to not hurt it. And number 2, I did a study in 2019 on Price Lane on the asphalt on an 85-degree day. The dirt average temperature was 115 on an 85-degree day. It's all sun. Pavement was 115 degrees. Crusher fines or wrap was 140 degrees. And the reason for that is the crusher fines have a rough edge and they absorb heat over a larger surface area. So if crusher fines are thought of, you've got to consider whether pets are going to like 140-degree temperature on an 85-degree day. Today was in the high 90s, so it was even higher. So that's something that should be considered if we get away from dirt. I love dirt.
I love dirt too.
Am I on? So the drain, part of the contract for the MOU, the drain has to, oh, I got to talk to you at the end. Yes, I've been looking, no, him, it's another thing. Came by your house and you weren't home. The part of the contract, the MOU, the drain still has to maintain function. So anywhere we change it, say we even fill it in a little bit, we have to put the drain stuff in. So that's not an issue. As far as function as a drain, what it did was when the farmers irrigated and our water table was high, it pulled the water off. So if you're talking about the rain up there, and we've had some, I've been here since 97 and we've had the 2006, we've had the 13 and we've had the 14 that were all natural disasters. This end is okay. You need to be more worried from that end, from the river. And we have our levee, so we got to keep our levee functioning and good, which we just did a big project on, but we can't change the function of the drain for any of this. And there is no plan. The surface right now is good unless we need, people were really talking about, Doug and them wanting that pathway for people to be safe. I'd rather not spend money on putting 2 colors down if we don't have to, but they're saying that people drive, that there's a lot of traffic back there. That was one of our number one things is there's traffic and they need to slow down. So that's one of the ways to slow them down.
Hi, thank you. I live off Rincon Road, so I have a couple of questions. One of them, though, for maintaining traffic and having it going slower, who is going to be patrolling these? So we have a sign up and it says locals only. Whose responsibility is that going to fall on if we find that people aren't respecting those signs? That's one. It's just a sign, which I really agree that we need because we have a lot of traffic. And 2, I was looking at the slides and the side, and it's particular to where I am because I'm there at that intersection of Rincon and where it's all funky. But when we're driving, there are like 2 choices to drive sometimes. And if it's crowded and you have a car coming this way, and for emergencies too, like, and you need to go this way, you have the option to go around. And from what I see by doing this, that option will be gone. If I'm understanding correctly, we will both be on that same side, which is the east side.
That's correct. And that's why we would be adding the crossing at Target. So yeah, again, it's something that would need further design, but could be stepped down so that you could walk in the base of the
That's
drain.
not car.
But again, that's one of those higher levels of intervention that, would need to be evaluated. Do we just want to do habitat restoration here? Or do we have that partnership with the school where a nature trail would be something that would be valuable here? Or is it not a good idea? It's really just kind of a possibility.
Then they can't do that anymore. And sort of, kind of, they can do walking field trip forms, but there needs to be some sort of safety and leaving campus, and field trips are kind of less. As for patrolling the road, Rincon is private. Rincon is private, so if it's a public road, police department does. So it's a public road, there's a difference. Local access only is a recommendation for you guys to get to your house. And hopefully the person driving through Corrales goes, oh, local access. We don't go that way. Kind of like dead end road. You hope the person doesn't go down it. And sometimes they're dead end. And sometimes if you live here, you kind of know that you can loop around and get out of that dead end. Yes, correct. Did that answer all yours from the village and her? I'm not a design person.
I'm Jerry Montoya. Live on the corner of Nichols Lateral and Andrews Lane. And I share the same concerns as this lady over here. Is how do you go about regulating who drives in and out? And how do you go about regulating parking? And who's going to regulate all of the other things about dogs coming in, more dogs coming in, being off leash, when now they're not regulated very, very well anyway. And from listening to the talk today, everything here is a done deal. Yet people have been submitting comments for a long time, and whatever happens to those comments, I don't think they're ever read.
Do you
I think
have,
there's a lot of people that are really opposed to increasing traffic. You mentioned having students, an opportunity for busloads of students to come down.
for the Corrales? Yeah, for the Corrales Elementary students that are there. Yeah.
Because
Is really to limit traffic, to try to reduce it and to try to reduce speed.
and then in the beginning, it was my understanding that this project was going to end at the Nichols Lateral.
Correct.
But now it's continued all the way down.
No, it's still ending there. They went ahead, the committee who brought this forward to the village, the original Interior Drain Committee, asked them to at least look at that in case they would like, my understanding is to get an MOU. So it's the villages, but it's not. It all stops at the Nichols. So we're putting no parking in. We could put no parking signs up, kind of have to have them if you want police to tow someone off, but we're not putting anything in to allow parking. There's still parking at the Bosque Gate that has a parking area that is, still there. But the other place we're hoping as we put some of this stuff in, people stop parking. And most of the people who got their dogs off leash are your neighbors. And I do know animal control does go out, and I've heard them cussed out
Wow.
by people I know in the village to tell them not to tell them, you can't tell me what to do. I live
Well-
here. So report them, call them in. We could
Tanya,
not have
I
dogs off leash.
differ with you on that.
You
But
think, well, we do
the
have
other
people that drive
thing
down.
is, how are you going to control the people and the hours of operation down
There is no hours of,
there?
it's not a
It's going to
park.
be open?
No, it's not a park. So I have the same 4 rules that I started this project was when they said, will you manage it for the village? If it's gonna have a walkway and stuff, you need to say the Bosque closes at dark. And our parks close at dark. You need to say that. However, if Doug is walking from his house, who else lives on the drain? Give me a hand, to their house. Doug should not get a ticket for being a neighbor walking down there. He should be able to walk to his house. But we're not putting in things to make you come and hang out at midnight. That is not what I want. No midnight meditation. 1.
Well,
2, public safety
glad
needs to
hear
get it.
that.
Public safety needs to be able to get in and out, period. And if there's a fire, you guys need to be able to get out quickly and efficiently. And 3, we need to be able to put the hydrant lines in for the rest of the fire hydrant lines and for village utilities. Those are the things I care about. So none of our parks are open after dark. And people call and get people out of this park over here after dark. They evicted several people a couple of council meetings ago. So
Well, there's a lot of people that walk on the Nichols Lateral after dark
But-
and 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night.
so if the Nichols lateral would be MRGCD property, So we don't have control of that. This piece, because the village we have been given the maintenance. So we could do absolutely nothing, but we still have to do maintenance, which means we have to maintain the road surface on both sides. So we kind of want to make it smaller so it's not maintained. So it's not a roadway, 4 sides. But now we can put rules in place, like in the pathway areas. But on that side, we don't own it. It's MRGCD and it's their rules.
It's really confusing.
I
Okay.
trust me, it's confusing to me on who owns what. It's kind of like the Bosky.
But
We
I-
closed the Bosky at
I
2 different
appreciate
hours.
you Having read all the comments that I presented.
I
You're
absolutely did read all your comments. And then I ran into a friend of yours and I don't know where his business card is and he wants you to call him. And that's why I have to get with him later. And we did. They compiled. Did you bring that list of comments?
No.
No, not you, but
No.
I didn't know if you brought it on a disc. They've been showing every single one of these meetings, all of your guys' comments. We had like 180 people who did online and they've been really looking at those comments from
But
you
I
guys.
think if the village is sincere about maintaining the rurality of Corrales Village, they need to look at the impact that traffic is going to cause, and it already has caused, because they keep expanding into areas that.
That's why we want to kind of we can't make it narrower because I still need my fire truck to get to. We
I
want to make it
understand.
visually narrower so you don't feel like you should be racing through there. Did I
and
have that right?
wanna make sure that I can get out of my gate.
And I want you to be able to get out of your gate.
Right.
And and I want you to get out of your gate with your gooseneck trailer. And I want, we've had people, we were like, let's put signs up that say no parking. And we had people in the group that said, don't put signs up. We don't want to see them. Well, I'll tell you, if we don't put no parking signs up, I can't make you not park. I want to put some no parking signs up, maybe not 500, but maybe one that says no parking the whole length of the drain, because the police department won't cite if there's not a sign and the judge won't upheld if there's not a sign. But how many people don't want a sign? But how many people don't want no parking? Who want no parking? I got to figure out the way, because right now people park all up and down the drain, right? You pull over, you go fishing, and you park right there. So we got to kind of come up with that compromise. But yes, they should not. You can put a sign up on your gate though, but then how do I get the police to enforce it? Call me later, Jerry. Just call me later, Jerry.
I would love to work on a project where we can make everyone happy. I'm just gonna put that out there. We try so hard, but it's hard. Let's see. Let's see.
So I'm Nancy Rutland. I live on Andrews Lane between Skylark and Spyrock. I've lived there about 38 years. And I guess my concerns are right now, I drive, bicycle, take my dogs and walk on that area to get into town, to go to the post office, to go to the library, the growers market. So I use that drain daily to get in and out from my house. And sometimes the roads are so rutty on one side that I need to go on the other side of the drain. And sometimes the roads are so rutty that I need to put my bike 20 feet this direction and the next week 20 feet the other direction. So I'm not sure how we would maintain this without scraping it constantly. And if we had road surfaces and multicolored road surfaces, I really don't get how we're going to maintain the range. We have no drainage system in place. It's a dirt road that gets quite muddy. I have another question, which is, I know because of the fire department needs to go both directions. I mean, we need to go both directions. We can't do one way on one side and one way the other. That was discussed the last meeting. That makes great sense. But that means we need to be able to pass each other both directions. Right now, sometimes it's so rutty. The only way to do that is to really pull off 50 feet back, let one car go by and then go by. It's not wide enough. So I'm wondering, what is private and what do we own? There are fence lines and people put out stumps. They don't want people parking there, but we're going to need that area if we're going to have 2 lanes of traffic and maybe a bike path. Does the village own up to the fence line? Are some people's properties 5 feet beyond the fence line, 10 feet beyond the fence line, on both sides of the road?
Yeah, it varies. And the village, again, to be clear, the village does not own any of this. They have a joint powers agreement with the MRGCD to manage and make improvements to it. Right, and that's a good question. Everyone can, I believe, I'm not sure if the Sandoval County website, Bernalillo County is really great. You can go online really easily and see where those plat lines are. You know, I think we have we do have a survey of that area that shows where the MRGC property line is. Onyx Hunt is also a really great online resource to look at property lines. Sure, that's a great suggestion. Yeah, we can create a graphic that shows that for sure. Yeah. Maintenance is always a problem. And I think that, you know, again, the recommendations that we're trying to make here are not to increase the level of management that the village has beyond their capacity, because clearly already MRGCD hasn't been able to maintain the roads in a way that, you know, would be safe for that. Two-way traffic, 20 feet is what's required for the emergency vehicles and really what would be required for two-way traffic. So that 20 feet is required on either side as part of this plan.
Grass, bike path, more land.
Well, you wouldn't necessarily have to have the bike path and the 2 lanes in an emergency situation. So what a fire truck needs is that 20 feet, which can include that bike lane as long as it's all drivable surface. Right, but you wouldn't have to have the bike lane at the same time. If you have cars going two directions in an emergency like that, you're not going to have people on their bikes. Mm-hmm. 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 Understand. Yeah, and I think that this does again go back to that question of further design for specific situations, because that width of the road on either side of the drain varies pretty widely in different spaces. And yes, people have come out and done landscaping in front of their property, and that may be in the MRGCD right of way, or it may not be. And yeah.
access to their houses. One is off a road and one's off the ditch. I'm not gonna say you can't access off the ditch, off the road.
Amy, you just got a text from somebody online. They're having a hard time hearing.
Oh, without the mic? Okay.
So my name is Peggy Weigel. I live on 282 Andrews Lane. We have lived there since 1996. Nancy is our neighbor. I looked at the plan that was online. I don't understand why we are doing any of this, to be honest. So if the driving force is equestrian, bicycles, walkers, we already have that. We have that for the people that live here in Corrales. What we don't need, in my personal opinion, is people from other areas of the area coming in to enjoy what we currently enjoy on a quiet basis. Again, I mean, I love the fact that for the first time since I have lived here, the little section of road that goes from, and Nancy will help me with the directions here, that goes from where you enter the Bosque to, what is that road on the other side? That has never been maintained. And finally, it suddenly was, you could like drive on it for the first time ever. And I hope that's for the fire trucks, because that's a good thing. But I don't get this. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm guessing that Corrales as a community does not have the funding to either build it
or then more importantly, maintain it over the years, because it's going to cost more to maintain it. And what are we going to get? We're going to get people from all over the Albuquerque area coming into our neighborhoods, parking, whether we've put no parking signs up or not. And I hate to use swear words, but it's going to be a shit show.
So would you like, we didn't, Corrales Village did not start this. It was right. It was a group of citizens. Do you want to talk? Do you want the people who started this to talk? Would you like to hear from them? I mean, I just am managing the funding.
Okay. I'm the asshole who started this shit show. My name is Douglas Findlay and I was born here. So all you are newcomers except for you. Gray's not a newcomer. And you're not a newcomer. Hold on. You know what I mean. Okay. Then scratch that. Scratch that. Okay. I'm glad our sons went to school together. Look, I grew up, and I don't really care if you know my history or not, but I grew up walking across that ditch to go to school at Corrales. No, sorry, scratch that. Sandoval Elementary School. And we would catch fish in the ditch, and the ditch flowed freely, and it had wooden bridges crossing it where the Conservancy allowed us to cross it, and the whole ditch was impassable. They would dredge it once a year and pile up the dredgings on both sides of the ditch and leave it that way until the next time they wanted to dredge it, and they would blade it off and dredge it again. In the meantime, nobody could drive anywhere on either side of that ditch, ever. You could walk that if you were vigorous. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just, okay. So where I grew up, the road came up to the ditch and then went that way, and then it went up what turned into Target Road. My dad had a Volkswagen Bug, and he said, I can make it over to this part, dune bugging, and he did, and that started the demise of the whole goddamn thing. Everybody started driving up and down both sides of the ditch, and now whoever said, oh, now there's a new place to drive, well, it's going to get more and more and more so. And so I'm sorry that I opened my big mouth, but I did. And I said, you know what? This would be a really nice place to stop the traffic. Let's not have any traffic here. Let's put it back to where you could get to your house on your legal access, which most of the people who use that drain do not have legal access to their property, which is beside the point now, because now from my mouth, it's become under the control of the village of Corrales, and the whole thing is being designed, I'm sorry, by the fire department and by the MRGCD. And in my dream, my idea to shut it all down and make it back into a natural place where the water flowed or doesn't flow or whatever, but not car flowing. That is my idea, is right? Oh, well, this is when the fire department and the MRGCD get in front of my face, okay? Just close it and use your legal access. From Corrales Road, everybody has legal access coming from Corrales Road laterally to their place. All those things up and down that ditch were never legal. And the fire department, Lee Mackerel has the most power of anybody in Corrales.
But if there's a fire at Madalark, where are you going? We see people die in fires.
I think Hanson Road is unique.
It's private.
Hanson Road is private, all the way out to Corrales Road, and it's usually got holes this deep between the ditch and Corrales Road. My little access is Hanson Road.
But for a while, they couldn't get it.
But if we close everything down, then I'm gonna be stuck. out
Okay,
there.
look, I'm not a designing this thing, okay? But my idea was let's stop all this traffic. Let's fill in the parts of the ditch that don't work and make a meandering path for human beings to use and not automobiles. Let's try to get as much traffic out of there as possible and make this a place for nature. And so, you know, this is my idea. I got my idea living there, but also from, and I'm going to just talk now because I got the microphone. I got this idea from this thing that happened in New York City, and it's called the High Line. There's a raised railroad track that goes all across, well, one end to the other, not all the way, but anyway, a raised railroad track through Manhattan that they condemned. And they're going to tear it down. And some guy, some dumbass like me, and some other friend of his said, hey, wait, this is a nice place. Let's not let them tear it down. Let's make something cool with it. And they did. And it took presidents and senators and all kinds of contributions. And they saved that thing and turned it into an amazing park going right through from all over. Okay. Thank you, Nancy. I'll tell you what, for every good idea, there's 40 shitty ideas that go along with it. But besides, sorry, my language, but I'm me. So this is my idea. Let's close it down. Let's plant more trees. Let's fill in the parts that don't work and make it so there's not all these people using it as a bypass for Corrales Road, which happens. And I know because I live there, they get off of Corrales Road to miss the school and they haul ass through there and get up over there. And if you ask Tony Tafoya, he used to monitor the dust from up on the sandhills and watch. This is where all these people are shortcutting through here and over there and by the dust trails. And that's what that thing is a dust trail. So, you know, I have to say, I'm sorry I came up with this idea, but people say, leave it, don't do anything. Well, this is what happens when you don't do anything. It turns into a 4-lane dirt racetrack. And that's what we got now. And there's no water draining through there, except for in the places where it's standing still. The clear ditch is doomed. The whole water table is doomed, you guys. Ever since they put the dams up the river, it started the river from being a sedimentary river into a scouring river. And the water table here depends on the level of the river. And since the river is scouring out, getting deeper and deeper and deeper, because there's no sediment coming down from those dams, our water table is dropping. That's why that ditch doesn't work anymore. And according to the MRGCD, it's not coming back. That thing is never going to work again. And so they said, you guys do whatever you want with it. I talked to sorry, got any water here? Anyway, I talked to the then CEO, the CEO of the MRGCD told me, you know, no way. The MRGC told me this is never going to work again, but we have this contract and the MRGCD does not own the property. So anyway, he said, you can do whatever you want with this ditch. We want out of it because it's a liability for the MRGCD. Nobody's ever sued them for driving in a ditch and dying yet because it's dangerous. I remember an upside down Volkswagen in that thing one time with a cart going through it. That was your brother. Okay.
I'm not sure they came. I do know that we have people who are in favor, but I don't know. Usually yeah, no, I'm gonna go over there, but we usually get negative feedback at, like, we had our open houses that people came. How many of you came to any of our open houses or hay rides? Okay, good. Yeah, nope, they were advertised. We've had like 4. And we did a hay ride down your ditch. Always put another spot. Nobody knew about that. And then you come there and say, yeah, no.
Because I'm a single mom and I could only drop the boards off
Oh.
before 3 or after 9 and I work.
I do.
And my child's soccer game got moved up, so I'm so sorry that we couldn't be there. I had all the boards printed. I wanted to be there, but I had to take care of my kids.
You'd have gotten a lot of feedback.
I wish we could have been there. I do.
And
I'm
my
so
son was
sorry.
getting married, so I wasn't missing that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna, can you hear me okay? I'm Becky Valentine and I'm a lifelong resident here. We were kids together too. And I live down there. I live right next to the school to where I put a level in the window to see if it's like done this to my house yet. But it hasn't. The level worked. It relieved my anxiety. And I put my, so anyway, what I wanted to say was I think that in some ways to make something and keep it rural, you got to make a couple of rules because if you don't, it's going to just get invaded. I've seen the whole state do this. They're having these problems everywhere that there's small towns across this across the entire state. And I think that it's important to maintain a balance. You can't tell people they can't be here anymore. I mean, people have bought their houses and they live there and it's their homes and they love it. But the fact of the matter is, you know, down Rincon, we used to jump our horses down there. We can't do that anymore. Well, it got bought up. Things happen. But there has to be a balance. And this is actually my compliment because I think that this plan kind of preserves that balance. It doesn't take away anything that we have had. And yeah, some people have put their fences further out. So what? There's just a few feet here and a few feet there. And some people put some, you know, my place, I've got chips and I'll put a bench up if somebody wants it. It's okay. It's not going to hurt me. I think that we all need to just give a little bit to get a lot back. And the cars are the worst problem. The dust has been terrible. Yes. No. No. I had a lot of questions.
Honest, get information.
No, I had a lot of questions, but you know, my particular road is also one of those easements that you don't use a lot, but it's a utility easement and it has to stay the way it is because there's the gas line. And, you know, one night, one of the trees caught fire on the line from the next door neighbor and there was a fire up in there and you have to be able to let those trucks on the road that I'm on. You can't turn fire trucks around on it. You know, it's very, very dangerous. So I talked to the fire chief and that's why I opened up the road because and also for the little kids to go down. They shouldn't have to go to the main road and walk on this highway when they can, you know, ride their bikes down. They're little kids. They don't need to get run over. I had a friend who was just crashed into her on her bicycle, Dana Russell. No, it was on the main road. But, you know, it's really hard. You try and pull out and you don't get hit on the ditch. But if the kids can use dirt roads and safer roads to get where they need to go, that's good. I used to be on the council here, and I think if we all consider the good of the community and we all have the same thing in mind, it's just how to get there. But I think it's a very good, the ideas are really good. Nobody's going to get whatever we want. I think that's called consensus. And if we can establish consensus as a community and get along together, I think it would be really, really good. I think the ideas are great, but I pulled a lot of people. I pulled a lot of people when they were getting stuck. We'd have to get up and go help push them out. And that was a pain in the butt too. Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay. So that's what I have to say. And thank you, Tanya. No, at first I didn't know what was going to go on, but then I saw.
You were very much calling all the time. You wanted information.
Me?
Didn't you meet her at her house?
We met. Yeah, we met and we walked around and stuff. Yeah. I just wanted to show her around.
Okay. And the other thing is this is a plan. A plan is not a design and a product. So if we're going to do the crossing at Target, then we have to get an engineering and go back out for people's input on that crossing to make sure we're not in, you live right there. Because there's also a phone pole on the middle of the road. We'd like to like make the road go around because we've had car wrecks into the phone pole in the middle of the road.
If they didn't have a road there, they would have a problem.
But then they wouldn't get home. So we want those consensuses. We're not gonna go out and come up with the $300,000 to plant every section of the drain in a week. But I think someone was over here first and then Nancy.
Wasn't gonna say anything.
Oh, should say.
I really wasn't. I'm Nancy Baumgartner. I live at 848 Andrews Lane, right on the ditch. Hear me now? Thank you for all the hard work you've done.
Can't hear you.
Thank you for all the hard work you've done. And Doug, thank you. The way it really started was the last administration all of a sudden started paving the ditch with recycled asphalt. They started up at the north end on Quail. And then finally we found out about it down in our neck of the woods. Larry is my neighbor. Was that 6 years ago already? And we stopped it because nobody on our side, nobody on over there wants that paved. At least not anybody I know. Who? Oh, you do? Okay, somebody does. Okay, I shouldn't say nobody. That's not true. Okay, anyway, I think there haven't been any studies. I would invite anybody to come spend a day at my house. Bring a lawn chair. I'll provide an umbrella. I'll bring you water. There's no traffic. Now there's a lot of traffic where Doug lives up by the school. It's like trying to solve too many different problems with one plan. I can go all day. I'm the busiest section. I'm between Entrada and Ella, right on the ditch. And I can go all day without seeing anybody, except maybe Larry. I mean, in his Model T, he doesn't make much dust. It's just, it's quiet there. The whole neighborhood is quiet. My neighborhood. There are areas that are busy. I have a friend that lives on the corner of Dixon and the ditch. And she said that the traffic coming down Dixon is crazy now. So it's different everywhere. Yeah. And it's going to get worse if they close the ditch because those cross streets are going to get a lot more parking and a lot more people. Anyway, I have an email list and I've sent it out to a lot of people and I've copied Amy and Tanya because I know how hard you've worked and I know how much you care, but I just think this is the wrong approach for Corrales. It's too manicured, it's too urban, too many signs, too many bollards. Crusher fine can't be graded. Horses like dirt, not crusher fine. It's just not what we need. All we need, that place has been neglected. I've lived there 24 years, right on the ditch, and it has been neglected for 24 years. It needs some attention. There's tons of dead wood there. The dead wood could be cleared out, and then it wouldn't be a fire hazard. You've already widened the road down by Priestley, north of Priestley for the fire trucks, so the fire trucks can get in there now. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to speak, but I have an email list. If you want to be on it, let me know, and I'll make sure that you're copied on it. And
Before you pass it down, I forgot.
Thank you.
Teresa, and then after you, I think Jeff's hand
Just
next.
sit here.
What did you say?
It's back here. Okay.
I grew up here. First of all, I wanted to say that this drain is not unique. There's another drain in Corrales, and my house was right up against it. A contiguous lot line. And that drain is still functioning just like it always has. And it has invasive species, especially the Russian olives, which smell great in the springtime And birds eat the little olives, and the birds love to be in the trees. And you're not, I just wonder, is this the beginning of plowing that under too, you know? You never mentioned that drain. Well, I don't know the name of it. It's right off of Uva Road, San Mateo drain, okay.
That drain functions from as it crosses up, and then it goes all the way through behind Cottonwood or Applewood and Uva. That part has no function anymore. It's this part that does. We don't own that. It's MRGCD, period.
This either.
Well, no, what we don't, but Doug and them got it handed to us that it now says the village will maintain, and we have to maintain it for traffic. We didn't do.
Well, I know there's no plans for it. Nobody even mentions it. It's not, it's the drain that you talk about all the time. And I live just up the road from it. I think it should just be left alone, let nature take its course, maybe throw some wild seed out there and leave it alone. That's it.
And you did fill out your survey, right? Good. You both were on the hay wagons, if I remember correctly. Okay, so it was. And they took all those notes from the boards and turned them into survey answers. Yes, they did. Absolutely, absolutely. Our big thing. Oh, we did it at every gathering we had sticky notes. They compiled every single one of them. We wanted to make sure. So when this started, I said, the only way I'll take this over is if we have a lot of public input. We had, I mean, the first ever hayride public input that I've ever seen in the village. So people came out who lived in Corrales who didn't know where the drain was.
Why is the state and the town especially advertising Corrales? They're advertising.
Not my bailiwick. Not my bailiwick. So we go here, Jeff, Teresa, Mr. Eichler.
Yeah, Jeff Radford. I've been following this process since about 1990, more or less, when I talked to Subha Shah, then the director of MRGCD, and he was talking about the drain and how it didn't work, and that sooner or later the village might want to take it over to do something with it. So that was what started me thinking about this whole process way back then. I would second a lot of what Doug said, not everything, but a lot of what he said. In my interest, I used to live along the ditch, the property immediately adjacent to it on the east side of the drain for about 15 years, roughly. I've forgotten exactly. And my interest all along was the wildlife, the natural area and particularly the wildlife. I would like to see something mentioned as to what wildlife is still there. I would like to think, we used to see muskrats all the while and occasional beaver we would see in addition. Okay. Okay, good, thanks.
I love my friends. You hear the toad.
I agree. So what my main concern is to try to see the area is kept as natural as possible with as much wildlife as possible. Now, and I think that was Doug's primary interest as well. So the concern I have with the plan as I understand it at this point is that there is not an assured way to keep any moisture in the ditch. Okay, and I was talking to Amy about this before the meeting started. Initially, of course, the drain there was to draw down the water table so they could farm the area. And that during the irrigation season, the irrigation water would irrigate the crops and going down to the groundwater and then come out to the ditch and then be returned to the river. Well, that has not been happening. There's not hardly that very little land there that's being irrigated anymore. So there's not really any water, to my knowledge, entering the drainage ditch. And my concern is, and I was talking to Amy about this before, what happens when a wastewater collection system is introduced all along there? So far at this point, since in the absence of irrigation for crops, what is replenishing the groundwater there, which flows into the interior drain, is the septic, is the wastewater. Now, I'm not particularly afraid of wastewater. Some people are. And my concern is that when a sewage system is extended to the area to the east of the drain, that the groundwater that is coming from the septic systems is no longer going to be going to the drain because of the sewage system, what then brings water into the ditch. Now, Doug and the committee that Doug and I worked on there for a while, we talked about getting a water rights, the village using water rights to irrigate the vegetation in there. And that I don't think that that's part of the discussion anymore. But I think what we need to do is figure out how to get water into the ditch if we're going to have it as a natural area with habitat for wildlife. And I don't know how that's going to happen, especially if we sewer all that east side of the road.
Both in the work that we've done with the wildlife biologist and with Rio Grande Return, who does habitat restoration, they're doing work along the river. They do work in New Mexico. They may have been involved with it. And that was a big question that I had was, is there a way for us to revegetate this without additional irrigation? You know, this is not, we are not proposing landscaping. And I think that, you know, her answer was yes, you know, but it is plant selection and it is, you know, figuring out, you know, can we do the slope stabilization with the wattles? Can we capture water when it falls and slow it down and keep it where it is? And so I think that, you know, absolutely that's a concern. I mean, water is a huge concern for a lot of other really big reasons, right? And I think that, you know, we're in some ways we're going to have to see, but there are habitat restoration practices that allow for revegetation without additional irrigation. It's important to know that.
And you know, there's Bureau of Reclamation is doing some scouring changes of the river, but they're starting at 199. So by the time we get down here, yes, I just wasn't going to say that on the record.
I'm Teresa Lopez, and thank you, Doug, for fessing up that you made a big mistake. I'm sorry. You made a big mistake starting this whole mess, but you can still be my friend. I'll talk to you. I've lived in Corrales for 70 years of my life, along with a few other people, descendant family. And I just want to ask, again, this is one thing that I say on a lot of times at the council meetings. What brought you here to Corrales? What brought you here? It was the dirt roads, not pavement. I'm sorry, but not pavement. And it was just the feeling of being here. Everything is changing now. I mean, just the other day, the Silva house that was hundreds of years old got knocked down, or not knocked down, but that area right there is not part of Corrales anymore. They said it was less than or around 50 years old. No, that went way back. And I'm just seeing Corrales change and change and change, and I want it to stop. I can't make it stop, but we can at least slow it down. And again, what did you come to Corrales for? You came because of the way it looked, not because of the paved roads and this ditch thing that you want to make. And the mayor always says, it's a plan. It's just a plan. He has done so many plans that are just a plan. And then we go forward with it. I don't want that to happen. I'm the one that used Brad's words. Clean it up, make it safe for the fire department, make it safe there.
we need to stop the traffic from the outside coming in. You know, again, they're just, Corrales is just advertising, advertising, advertise. Come in, come see. I don't want to be the little puppet that dances and shows how to make tortillas. I don't want to be that anymore. I never did. But we just need to let the ditch be and clean it, again, clean it up, make it safe, plant some wildflower seeds in it and let it go. How many people have really gotten hurt on that back ditch? How many people? No, anybody know of anybody that has really gotten hurt back there with the traffic doing this? I don't even live by there. Huh? Oh yes, but it was yes. And then the other girl, yes, but those were not because of traffic going this way. Yeah, but that's their fault. I just say, leave it alone. Leave it alone and just be happy that this is where you live. Okay. Where?
Okay, now it's and then I believe it was you. Yes.
Bob Icorst. I do not live next to the ditch. I'm up on Corrales Road on the north side. I used to be on council with Becky years ago, and the council did a great job, in my opinion. We didn't try to turn Corrales into an HOA like we are right now. But even Stewart gets up and talks about the drainage ditch. I've got property down in South Texas, one canyon from Kerr County. My boy was there for 4th of July. They got rain. They didn't get the rain that they did over on the next canyon. Ruidoso flooded. My daughter lives right below Ruidoso. What's going to happen if we get a rain and we don't have a ditch to even drain anything away? All of our ditches are raised. Everything is raised. No drain water is ever going to get into our irrigation ditches. That is the only place, we got 2 of them. Those are the only places that are going to even drain any water from Corrales out. And we're ignoring Mother Nature. We can't tell you when we're going to get a rain. Okay, 6 inches a year, I can live with that. But if we get 6 inches in a day, my house is flooded. This ditch will not help my house, but it will help everybody else around here because it will relieve the overburden of water. And in the long run, eventually it would get to my house. I'd still have 2 foot of water because the road is higher than my house. I'm stuck. With Jeff, the sewer system is a $106 million project estimated. I don't think it's going to fly. The village can't come up with $106 million, which would mean we'd have to start locking you guys up and holding everybody hostage to get enough money to pay $106 million for a sewer system. So I was at some of the meetings. I don't object to doing work on the thing, but don't fill it in. Let it do its purpose. If it's dry, it's dry. In case of a catastrophe, it will work. And hopefully we don't get there.
Yeah, we have to leave it functional. It's a requirement. Your turn.
A couple quick things. I live on Rincon and haven't really thought one way or the other too much about all this, but the one thing that I did like about this plan is that the big traffic problem for me is the people coming away from the school after they drop kids off. They come flying down that ditch on both sides. They ignore the stop signs. They're going off to work or whatever, but they drive fast and they go all along the ditch right there from the school all the way to Ella, sometimes past, but usually they're going out by Ella. So that's a problem section, at least in terms of the traffic. And then for 2 seconds, my soapbox, we got water problems here. Why do we have so many lawns? Somebody needs to start talking about stop having lawns and watering every day and watering every other day and having green things in a place that doesn't belong. We're a desert. We don't need to have green lawns.
And she's next. I think hopefully part of the school stuff will be changed with their revamping, but we do want to, part of the reason for blocking that off was to stop that school traffic.
Thank you very much. Hi, you guys. My name is Scotty Gissel and I live on Price Lane. My only access to my house is the ditch. And I'm listening. I'm relatively new. I've only been here 6 years. I fell in love with Corrales 16 years ago when I was working in Albuquerque. And I just want to say this is a huge project. And I'm missing the neighbor feel here. And I will say the problem that I have on Price Lane, I am between Target and Dixon. People speed up and down Dixon. Target, a lot of school people come right down that area. And also, God bless the fire department, putting in fire hydrants. I actually have one right in front of my house. Yes, but I will also say there was no communication. There was no neighborly approach for it. Nobody reached out to me. My driveway, my access was a big pit for 2 days. So I don't know why somebody couldn't just knock on my door or leave a flyer, like when they left a flyer with photographs of my house saying that my number wasn't visible. I feel like that's something that would have mattered to me. And I feel, well, I'm just saying also those contractors, when I just so happened that I was out of town and I came back and I was really upset because I could see that my gate was messed up and I could see that there were lines, painted lines that go beyond my gate onto my property. And that guy said to me, "You weren't even here," and laughed.
Well, the contractors wouldn't have done that. That would have been 811 that did that.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, look, I get it. I'm new. But I really care about Corrales. And I also want to say, so it's different. My needs are different from obviously those folks that are further down. And, you know, if this is something, I think maybe we do something like get representatives for certain sections, you know what I mean? The thing is, we have different needs in different sections, but we all live along the drain. And, you know, whether you've been here your whole life and your parents' lives and generations, or you're new, let's be neighbors. Let's find what works for all of us. And there is a lot that I can see that it's already started in terms of saying, look at this section, look at this section. Different sections have different needs. I will say my section looks like a freaking moonscape. And I actually, listen, I've never had this experience, but I actually had like, what is it? Like a dirt devil literally go through my body. I was in my front yard and it went right through me and I was like, holy for holy. And then it like lifted a plant and took it away. So oh, you know, the other thing that I wanted to tell you is that drain, and I showed Amy this footage. I will say I was walking with my dog down Quail Trail. So I don't know if anybody here is on that end, but there was water gushing for hours upon hours into the ditch. Yeah. I will have to look at my camera to see what the date was, but there was a man who drove by and I was like, do you know what this is?
When Wagner's irrigates there.
It looked to me like, because I did not see any water. I was by Wagner's and I did not see any water in those fields through the orchard. anyway, I will also say it looked to me, and I don't know if this is part of the group that's putting the fire hydrants in, but there's a lot of debris that's just being tossed in there. And the coyotes and animals, they use the, you know, what's under the roads, those pipes to go through, and now they're completely blocked. Just putting that out there. So anyway, thank you, my neighbors. I'm glad to be in the room with you.
Well, my name's Sherry Leonard Wink, and I was born and raised in the North Valley, and I've lived in the North Valley, Corrales and Bernalillo my whole life. And none of us like change. And I hate all the houses that are going in, but I think we live on the corner of Dixon and the ditch. And at 7:30 in the morning, 7:25 in the morning, I can count at least 28 to 30 cars coming around that corner. We've tried putting plants there to make people slow down and stop. They still run it. We watch people almost get hit all the time. We've put railroad ties around with sticks on them with reflectors. They knock those down and go around the corner. So I don't want to see anything change either, but I'd like to see the traffic stop and slow down. And I'd like to not see so many mega turret houses.
Oh my goodness. Do I have anyone with hand up? Oh,
No, you already.
No,
Thank you.
I'll give it to you after.
Yes.
Here.
Thanks. My name is Kat. I live on Priestley and the ditch itself. I have noticed way more traffic since they've been plowing and widening. Basically, they're just turning the ditch into a road. So far, the steps towards this plan have increased traffic rather than reduced it at all. I understand some people love that that section is now smooth and doesn't have potholes and doesn't have dirt, but it's also way more people driving through there now. The second thing I had was a question. I did hear you speak at the village council meeting, and I think you said there that there were going to be rules about what time you could possibly access or use the ditch. And then I think I heard Tanya say today that that wasn't true. I do have concerns about whether or not you'd be able to walk along there and bike along there after dark, because we do often use that for that purpose. You know, we go to a restaurant and we walk back and it's dark. So I'm concerned that access would be closed off if there were time limits.
So, right, there's no rules in the plans, but there, you know, some of the group that started this wanted some picnic, or not picnic, but benches throughout the drain in those areas we would need to put rules into. But like I said, if Doug wanted to walk from here to the Sanchez house, I don't think we should be saying you can't walk because it's your neighborhood. But we have Fisher people that come out to that ditch all the time. Kind of like if you live at the end of Dixon, they stock that back ditch. So they park back there and they go fishing. We close the bosque at dark. There's times for the bosque to be closed, and we try to enforce it. So no, you would get to ride just like you would get to drive your car. But if for some reason, and I don't know, did we put any of those benches in? No, but let's say that we did this plan and this section here, you know, we decide we're gonna do a test plan and we're gonna get an engineer out and we're gonna really look at Target Road behind the school, because that's the big one, right? That's where parents are still going to drop off. There's an entrance back there still, just so you know. That is not where the parents drop off, but there is an entrance gate that is still going to be back there, and the Alice gate will be back there.
Is that legal?
For kids to ride their bikes to school or walk to school, not parents dropping off. But so if you live, and Marty, you should be able to correct me if I'm wrong, because you were a school teacher, correct? If you live a mile away from school as an elementary school, you don't get a bus. You're supposed to walk. My kids went to Corrales Elementary. I had to ask people along Corrales Road, my mom lived on La Entrada, if they could walk in their yards to get to certain places at the school. But if we were gonna look at an area then we would once again say, let's get the community and we're actually going to engineer and look at this area. If for some reason we're like, I'm not saying we're doing this so no one scream at me, but I want to talk about rules. If it was decided that right out there we should have a picnic table and a bench, absolutely there would be rules. You can't be in there after dark. There should be no reason, because you live in that area. Where should you be eating your picnic? At your house, your friend's house. But if you wanted to ride your bike to the restaurant, absolutely, why wouldn't you? But we need rules to keep people out. It's like we're getting ready to Saucy Park. It would be rules. So, but we would have to look at each section. This is just the overall plan that we didn't come up with. We didn't even get the funding to do this. The community, Jeff Radford and them went out and got the funding to get this plan put together. It wasn't the village. It was the community group. If we did it section by section, we would then start looking again, not to plant seeds. I don't think any of you would care if we went out and threw wildflowers out, right? Or took out a tree that's already dead. But if we were gonna do a section where we're actually engineering it and we're doing some of these changes, then once again, that engineer is gonna love me, because I'll be like, we have to have a community meeting, because this section to this section, we need to see how it's gonna impact them. Does that help with that question at all? Did you have more? And that's just one of the things, now that it is our road, we have to, because if you break your axle on that road, it's now our liability. Used to be you had to sue MRGCD. And we have to plow it right now because it's ours and it says we will maintain. But that's why she wants to make it narrower, make local access only, try to get people not to drive both sides. Now, if you have to, like someone said they go to around their house. Who goes around their house? Did they leave? If the road's busy, they have to go on the other side of the ditch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. But we want to try to, we do want to kind of narrow it. And Nancy wants a traffic study. There probably will be a traffic study, but I have to be very careful because traffic studies are made to increase effectiveness and efficiency. So that's what a traffic study is, Nancy. No. Yeah, she said she's last. You said you're last.
Hi. I just think that so much of the problem seems to be in relation to the school. So I think there needs to be outreach to APS. I'm not the person who's been somewhere. Because I've lived in places, I did not raise my daughters here, but where they went to school, you were not allowed to drop off your children. Like they would, no, but they would physically be standing outside and saying, no, you cannot. And then parents learned when you're embarrassed and your child, can't get out there and you have to go drive back around, you quickly learn. So I almost think behavioral manipulation needs to happen where people learn, like if they're on their bikes and stuff, that's different, but maybe there needs to be some kind of collaboration with APS. And I also just get nervous, very nervous, always hearing it's just a plan, it's just a plan. Everybody here seems to have an issue with the gravel, very important points about the environmental impacts are being made. And I would prefer it if something like that weren't put in the plan then, because it just seems to be very limiting. It costs money and it seems like pretty much nobody wants it, but that's fine. Thank you.
It's definitely cheaper. Yes, I will. Yes. Okay, so let me go back to the school. So teachers have certain job duties, and that's their job duties. Teresa did some work at the school. They have had teachers who stand there. I was PTA president at Taylor for 6 years. My kids went to Corrales Elementary, and if a teacher told them not to, they just dropped them off further down the road. Because Corrales Road is busy and you can get stuck on that line. Now they are making modifications that hopefully will change some of that traffic impact. But we've asked the school, please tell parents, and they will send out the blast, but I can't force any of you to do anything. We're going to have more classrooms.
Yeah, I just had a really quick question because I'm wondering if I'm misunderstanding when I heard the presentation and Counselor Burkett talking about the traffic patterns for the school, because I might have misunderstood, but part of the presentation was like to put the field in the front and more of the school in the back because of all the traffic that's backed up on Corrales Road, correct? So then my understanding that I thought was that it was going to be rerouted and more directed down like that target area. Because then okay, because I was like, then I thought my back road in that area is going to be so busy with school traffic. So I was just confused. Okay,
So there's and the bus traffic has another route that goes through the school that does not come down to the drain. They have to come in from the road.
All back out to Corrales Road, correct?
Is there any access to this ditch?
For vehicles? For vehicles? No.
Physically.
They could cut. No, they can't physically, but they could go the ditch up Target Road. But they can't go, there's no access from the school to the back. It all loops back up.
People from the students walking on the drain would be able to safely get to the school and not have to go to Target to get to the school.
Because it is now going to 8th grade, which means 1.5 miles, no bus, is my understanding. No, and walking is great for you, but we're not, you got to make sure that they're not on Corrales Road. Okay, anyone else? Because when I give this to Teresa, we're done. No, we want your input. This is not my project. They just asked me to manage the money and I said, then I want lots and lots of public input because it's your guys's area and it's your area too.
I want to, folks have said, oh, your plan, you want this. That is not the case at all. Okay, folks, this is not mine. This is something that my company has been hired to do. And we have really tried our best to hear all of the voices of people who live on the drain, of people who use the drain, and we have tried to balance those needs, okay? It's not an easy thing to do. You all heard that here in this room tonight. We don't agree. We are people. We have different perspectives. We have different experiences. We have different concerns. So I just want to be really clear that we're really here trying to do our job as best as we can, but this is not a personal thing that I want to see happen. I don't own this. This is really something that we're trying to do for the village and for the community. So we do really appreciate everyone's time and everyone's input and everyone's perspectives, and thank you for that.
We had people who wanted it to be called a park. And I said, if you call it a park, they will come. It can't be a park, We want to slow your traffic down. We'd like to limit your dust. Fire department is completely fine on driving on the dirt roads. Your dirt roads are nice. There are other dirt roads I would not drive on. You just can't. But we will really try to get, I've seen several people at lots of these meetings. We have people I thought would be here who aren't here who attended lots of the meetings. How many times did we do the survey? I paid money that came out of my personal pocket to make sure that the school, because that Peach Jar is not free. One time I did get reimbursed. I figured out how to do that. Peach Jar isn't free to send the notes to the school so people would get that information. We want you guys to be involved. And I'm glad everyone showed up, whether you're for it or against it. It's for the school kids. It's for all the kids that go to the school. It sends it to their parents. It's a communication thing. And it's like $30 to send it. And we did it twice really to try to get, because you may not have kids at the school, but we have people who have kids at the school who get the information out. Nancy.
At the meeting, the council meeting on the 22nd, when they vote on the. Okay, they're voting on the plan, this plan. What about the input that you've gotten today? There won't be any changes to it? they're just going to vote on what is already. I bet it's a little soon. Right.
We've had a lot of opportunities for input, and like I said, we've heard a lot of different voices and a lot of different opinions, and we tried to balance those.
It sounds like the school is the biggest problem, the area along behind the school. Why don't we just concentrate on that? Well, the council's going to vote on this plan, and they're for the design, and then, I mean, these things snowball.
So right now I can tell you there is no funding for design. I'm trying to come up with funding to keep the old church from falling down. That's a whole different thing. But the funding for this came from state capital outlay, and it was the group that got it, not the village. They did it. It doesn't, but come tell it, write your counselor. But I mean, give them what your feedback, definitely. Come to the council meeting. I've only known you for like 27 years.
You're just a baby, though. You're just a baby. I just want to say thank you to you for doing this for us, for having a, what is it called? A town hall. This is what we need more often, a town hall, whether we agree or don't agree. We need to voice our opinions. And I don't think it's directed at you personally, Amy. It's your company. It's the mayor and what he's doing, but it's up to our counselors. And we all need you to come and join us at the council meetings. You know, if you're against all this stuff, like Tanya said, show up against or for, I should say that, against or for, show up at the council meetings and voice your opinion. You know, be heard, be heard. Thank you.
And you can get a lot of information if you stay at the council meetings. I mean, I know Teresa and there are people that stay, but we have people that come and they leave before they hear what they actually wanted to hear about. So stay, please. Yeah. And I appreciate all of your thing. I was just asked to be the funding. I have no ownership in this, but you have to have someone manage the funds. Build it, don't build it. I want what the community wants. It really is true. You're welcome. Any last minutes? It is if it's.
So, I think for us, that's kind of neither here nor there either. I mean, I think that the work has been done. The concerns and the input and the ideas and the suggestions have been documented. We will finish the plan and submit it to the village, whether it's adopted by council or not, so.
That's it, the plan, opening the door for, you can't close it, that's the scary part, opening that door that Corraleños are going to close.
Please remember, Corraleños are the ones that started it. It did not come from, and this was not an administration request. This was not an administration idea. This all came from the community. Jeff is here and he was part of that group that petitioned to please let us form a committee. You guys worked for 2 years. Supposed to be for a year, 5 years, 4 years. Supposed to be a 2-year. It was a community driven plan. It was, so I can't tell you about those first 4 years. I was not involved, but I believe I was told they did some door knocking. I wasn't not involved. And a lot of that was done during COVID. So a lot of it was online meetings, but it did not come from administration. Didn't come out and say, let's do something with the ditch. Administration did not go and say, MRGCD, give us the ditch. I could put fire lines on it when it wasn't ours. There's a way to do it. And we've done it on other ditches. It came from your neighbors that, how many, 5 people, 6 people on the committee? 5 that came out and said, we want to do this. And then they petitioned the state to get the money to build a plan. So As much as I appreciate your comments, but it was not administration. It did not come from, the only thing they said is, yeah, we'll let you have a committee.
The plan makes it sound like this is what's gonna happen, instead of these being.
Ideas.
Ideas, or here's what you could.
Because it really is Amy, it is an idea, right? An overarching.
Presentation, the way that we define this document is that it is a framework to decide, to guide decision making, okay? 100%, 100%. And we can, language is important, right? But we also have to use words. And master plan is the industry standard language for a document like this, which is why when we talk about it, when we explain what is the purpose of this, that's why we say it's a guiding framework. Okay? It's not a design. There's lots of choices to be made down the road.
I'm Fred Hashimoto. I think when it goes before council, it doesn't have to particularly be approved. I mean, that's just one word. It can be accepted, it can be adopted. And so I think the verbiage ought to be worked out that, it's considered. And the agenda right now says approval, but, I think you should, work with how you want that verbiage, because approve means pretty strong. Adopt is pretty strong. Accept means, well, we've seen it. And so, but, so the verbiage can be worked out. It doesn't have to be approved, because the 22nd is the agenda, I believe, says future item says approval of. Maybe it doesn't have to be approved. It can be, accepted means, we accept the plan. But anyway, I think people should talk with their counselors, particularly, the counselors who are involved in this would be Stu Murray and Zach Burkett. I mean, they're the counselors whose districts own that area, and try to get maybe accepted instead of approved. And 'cause that's been mentioned before at council meetings. You have to accept it or approve it or adopt it. There's a big difference. But anyway,
Because it's a Robert's Rules of Order. It's a transaction of business, kind of like Amy said, industry standard for this is considered a master plan. On an agenda, you have to consider, take action, and approve a motion. It's not necessarily the document, but I don't see anything wrong with what Fred suggested, changing the wording to acceptance. I'm the one who writes the agenda, and it comes out on the 18th. So, I made myself a little note here that says acceptance versus approval. I don't think anybody will have a problem with that.
You guys, I just want to say one last thing. I don't think it was when we're saying like it was community members who started it. I want to like at least acknowledge that they knew that the area needs to be worked on. I agree. I wrote a letter to all the councilor members. I put it a little bit later than I wanted to for them to read. But I agree that this area has been neglected and it's a beautiful area. But I think what we're doing is going like this and we're going like want the same thing, but we're going about it different ways and we're arguing. And I really feel like there's so many valid things. Like for those of us that live right behind the school, it is very hectic and it is very confusing. And like I said, it was a different time in the 70s. I walked home barefoot in the mud. I loved it from there to Wagner Lane. Like that was our reality. It was our reality that like our teachers would just take us out back. We had a park. I mean, it breaks my heart to see what's happening right now. That park is gone and it's just, see the development, just the developing school is changing. Yeah, it's changing our landscape right now, no matter what we want with that new school and the way it's being built. So maybe you guys were very thoughtful. Like maybe we do it in steps. Maybe we put provisions in there. Maybe we put like safeguards so that like with input of da da da. You know, like I don't like those poles. To me, it makes it feel very urban. It makes it, I think in my thing I said, it makes me feel like I'm at the nature center. Like staying here, walk here, something, but the trucks have to get over it. So I hear all points. I just don't want us to argue. I want us to move forward. And I like wanted to say it when Doug was here, but he left. Like, you know, his call for language, I get it when you're passionate about something. And I just think that we're not arguing with you. We hear you. And I looked at your plans. And it's just hard when you've been here forever and you've grown up in a certain way. And I do think I agree the traffic needs to slow down. It goes very fast. But I don't agree that it needs to be anything but dirt. I agree that I just noticed it, like driving on those back roads. I'm like, when did this road from between Ella and Entrada get all of a sudden really paved? Because I put that in my letter too. All of a sudden, they're speeding. The east side of the road of that drain between Entrada and, well, between Rincon and Entrada and Ella. Is that what it's called? But it's really, I know what you're saying. It's very flat. Like I just noticed it the other day. I'm like, wow, this is really graded. Because I used to have to be careful, like, oh, there's a little bump there. And so that is making the opposite effect. It's making people speed through there. So I just want us to continue. I don't want to table it. I just want us to continue the discussion and be very thoughtful about it. That's all I want to say and end on that.
The group here, we want that input. We really do. We appreciate all of you. We appreciate all your input. Part of it is the fire trucks. The other part is the gooseneck trailers that would get stuck on the rock. We looked at doing rock for instead of barriers, but there are people who have horses that have large trailers and then, right. And you may be a very good driver. Not all of them are. We appreciate you. Any last minute, anyone who didn't get to speak, we want your input. We truly do.